use activities in loops in your code. Loops are often used in programming. Each statement in a loop, including the first statement, is executed for each iteration of the loop. So when you use loop in your code or in your project, for each statement in a loop, it involves the iteration of the loop. So when there's a process that your loop is expected to follow, it means your code will run for every instance of such statements in your loop. And this sometimes can hamper performance or affect the performance of your application or your system. Statements or assignments that can be placed outside the loop will make the loop run faster. If there are statements in your loop body or in your loop block that can be placed outside the loop, that will speed the execution of loop rather than having them inside your loop body itself. Let's look at an instance of how a statement or assignment can be placed outside the loop that will make the loop run faster. And a traditional way whereby we jam-pack everything into the loop body and we make the performance of the loop slower. So I pull up my code editor and we'll examine how we can achieve that in the example that I'm about to show. So I'll take this out because you don't need it anymore. And now I can come inside my code. Usually, when you have a loop, you usually do something like this for let I equals to 0. And then inside this place, you can do something like I less than array dot length I plus plus. You can do console dot array or not. So let me make the array cons fruit. Yeah, let me say this is the array. Now, if you look at what I have here, let me log it document. Of course, nothing is showing. I want to find out what is the problem. Array is not divine. Okay. So here I'm not using array, I'm using fruit. So it should be fruit.length. And now on my screen, you can see the output of this for loop. This array has 3 elements and it's looping over each of them and giving us an output. But instead of having everything inside this loop, inside the for loop statement itself, what if we can have the statement outside in order to improve our loop? This is bad. And now let's look at a better way to handle this. What if we can have something like this? Let's better code. So let's say I first assign the value of the length to a variable and do something like this. Let me comment this out. And now having this, I can then run the for loop this way. Now look at what I am doing. Instead of putting everything, the statement inside the for loop statement, just simplify it by putting this statement outside. Only when the loop body needs it is when it will call it. And then I am passing in the variable which I used to represent the length of my arrays here, and I'm incrementing it, and then I'm getting out the output. The difference between the two is that this first example, this bad code, it accesses the length property of an array each time the loop is iterated. So every time this loop is iterated, it will access the length property. Now, but the better code, which is this one, it accesses the length property outside the loops and makes the loops run faster. So this is the difference between the two codes. Let's move on and talk about how to reduce DOM access. Essentially, the HTML DOM is very slow compared to other JavaScript statements. If you expect to access a DOM element several times, access it once and use it as a local variable. So if you plan to access DOM element several times, access it once and use it as what? As a local variable. Let's look at an example of how we can achieve that in JavaScript. So let me make an object variable and then document dot get element by ID and demo object dot inner dot html hello world. Now this is the output and then this is my object. So instead of you know, calling on the DOM element every time, I can access it and then use it as a global variable. You can see it here. So this is my DOM. I'm getting my elements and then I can just pass in a property to it and to set anything that I want to set. So this way, it will help to reduce DOM access. And lastly, we have how you can reduce DOM size. Keep the number of elements in the HTML DOM small. This will always improve page loading and speed up rendering, page display, especially on smaller devices. Every attempt to search the DOM like get element by tag name will benefit from a smaller DOM. So this way you can reduce the DOM size if you follow this recommendation by keeping the number of elements in the HTML DOM. This have benefits in the area of improving page loading and speed up rendering, especially on smaller device. How do you avoid unnecessary variable? Don't create new variable if you don't plan to save value. So in your code, unnecessary variable can create bloating in your code. So if you are not in need of new variables, if you don't plan to save variable values, don't create new variable. So an example of how you can do that is this. Look at this first code I'm going to put here. So let's say I have something like full name equals first name plus space and last name. Now I have document.getElement by ID equals full name. Now instead of having a code like this, you can replace it with this. Replace with this document dot get elements dot inner html equals to first name plus last name. You can see the second code does not require creating a variable first. So this variable is unnecessary and is not needed unless you plan to save variable. So if you don't plan to save values, don't create new variable. You can just use all what you need directly in order to improve the performance of your code.